You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, former talk show host Tavis Smiley has lost a bid to throw out PBS's lawsuit that accuses him of violating his contract by having sex with his subordinates. Smiley's attorneys argue that PBS was trying to punish him for behavior that long predated his current contract. But in a ruling on Thursday, D.C. Superior Court Judge Yvonne Williams disagreed, finding that PBS had also claimed more recent misconduct. PBS canceled Tavis's show after receiving a complaint of sexual misconduct in late 2017. Smiley sued PBS in February 2018, accusing PBS of conducting a sham investigation and of dismissing him based on racial bias. PBS countersued, alleging that Smiley had violated his morals clause and had engaged in financial impropriety. A trial is currently scheduled for February 10th. Now, folks, what's interesting about this is that after this happened, PBS launched an investigation when they put together this 500-page report detailing all sorts of lurid details with regards to Tavis Smiley's conduct when he had his show. He argued, and this is very interesting, he argued that, first of all, and the way this was set up, people don't realize, so Tavis was not an employee of PBS. He owned this company that produced the show in conjunction with the PBS station in Los Angeles, and it was aired on PBS stations nationally. And so he said that his company had no rules about folks dating in the workplace. So his whole point was, how are you telling me how I should run my company? What my rules are. They say they actually violated those rules. He did release a comment. Let me pull up in a second. His representatives sent me an email. Let me pull it up. Howard Bragman, who is an attorney, publicist there, he did comment. I'm gonna pull this up in a second, but just what are your thoughts again on this lawsuit and Tavis taking it further, and now this 500-page report is going to be entered into the public record.
Well, this might have been one of those moments where you cut your losses only because if half of what we've been able to read so far is true, it doesn't look good. And even if these relationships were consensual, as Tavis Smiley is alleging, I think it's hard to toe that line when you are the boss. True. Your HR and everything else in that company, right? So if I have a problem with you, say the relationship fails, or say it doesn't work out, who do I go to? Right? There's nobody to talk to about retaliation. I think it's just bad business, right? In addition to the sexual harassment stuff, which I think is separate from his conduct as a business owner, right? Because if you are my subordinate, how much consent is there really, right? If you work for me, do you really have the right to say no? And is that yes a real yes? I think this is why companies and businesses have policies against having an owner or someone who's a superior date a subordinate, because that consent piece gets really murky and really tricky, and that's across industries. It's not just television. I mean, it's also universities, etc. I mean, I'm at a university with a very explicit policy against faculty dating students, right? Because this can get really sticky very quickly for those kinds of places. So I just think beyond the sexual misconduct allegations that are being alleged, there is this other part about how you conduct business. And this sounds insane, right? That you would date people that work for you, right? They're not people who just work with you. They're people who work for you, and whether those people were really giving a real consent. It's not saying it's rape, right? I think there's a lot of real estate between coercion and rape. But I think the fact that you have relationships, ongoing sexual relationships in the workplace with people who work with you, saying that it's consensual doesn't really hold water when you are the head honcho, right? When you are the person that gets to make all the shots.
Shafa.
We talk about power all the time on this show in lots of different ways and power dynamics. And when you're in a position of power, You cannot put yourself in that type of situation. And just like my grandma say, when you know better, you do better.
Hopefully.
I think it's a conflict of interest just for the simple fact you are the owner. So you have employees that work for you. So I don't look at it as consensual from the standpoint of you using a person's job against them. If you don't do this, then I'm going to fire you or
Right.
Or
Now, he
write you
claims
up.
he didn't.
But
they
it might be
say
there.
he did.
But if they have that policy where there's no relationships with subordinates, if it's a zero tolerance policy, and it presents a conflict of interest,
but again,
you shouldn't do it.
But here's the piece, though. Again, when you have your own company, you can make your own rules.
But you have the most to lose.
No, I understand that. No, I get it. So, but what I'm saying, though, is you do have a right. Your company have your own rules. There's nothing that says you have to outlaw relationships between folks who work in the workplace. But the reality is, I think many HR experts will tell you that you probably want to do that. And again, and then also, if you say, hey, you can work in a company in different departments and you can be together, but when you talk about when you're the CEO,
and the HR department and everything else in between,
Right.
there is no place, there is no recourse. And lots of companies have policies where you can disclose the relationship to HR and then they kind of work through that legal side. But I think more than that, too, I mean, like you said, the PBS part of this, I think is also interesting because PBS also has stakes here, right? It's also their reputation. People don't understand television, right? That they're just a distributor of a show that he produces and owns, and that's separate from them, right? People see the entity PBS and they think this is a PBS thing, right? So if somebody is getting sued, if somebody is running his name through the mud, then PBS invariably is going to come in there somewhere, is either part of the lawsuit or part of the conversation. I mean, it was sort of the same thing with Showtime and Lena Waithe and talking about what was happening on The Chi, right? I mean, she's like, I don't own that show, right? That's Showtime show.
Now, different there. Again, how that was set up, yeah.
But I mean, everybody gets pulled into the conversation, whether who owns what. And I think for PBS, it's sort of like, let's exercise an ounce of caution here and let's not pursue this any longer because this relationship is looking like it's going to be a problem for us. And as a public broadcasting entity, they might have different considerations than, say, a larger network or some other kind of entities. I don't know. I think this is where the technical TV side comes in. But I can imagine them not wanting to be put in the same conversation with sexual harassment, especially in this moment that we're in now where everybody is sort of kind of on alert and more sensitive. And I think for the better, but certainly I think if they have an image to protect and an image to uphold, this relationship was no longer serving them and it had to go.
This is the statement here. I'm going to pull it up. Tavis Smiley dropped this comment on his Facebook page. Go to my iPad, please. A weak case you play in the press, a strong case you play out in a court of law. I look forward to my day in court February 10th, which I have finally been granted after 2 years of fighting. Julian?
I think at the end of the day, you can't shit where you eat. You know, you don't jeopardize your livelihood for convenience, especially when that convenience is a conflict of interest. There are plenty of people you can date outside of the workplace rather than jeopardizing that type of environment.
And I will also say, I mean,
look,
you know,
I made it clear to anybody. I'm like, look, if anybody ever accused me of something, it's gonna be like, he a hard ass. He
didn't touch me.
He tough.
He didn't touch me.
Oh, you can hang that up. Cause look, I don't even. Let me be real clear. I don't even hug folk. Let me tell you something. When I had my TV One show,
you give me a fist bump.
No. Folks like, oh, give me a hug. No, I don't hug. My deal is, I am not gonna sit here and any of this sort of stuff. And again, when you listen to, when you look at again some of the details, and yes, this is of course this is the PBS report that they actually put together. Variety had a story earlier where they talked about it, where they laid out some of those details. But according to PBS, he had multiple sexual encounters with subordinates, made unfavorable comments about PBS in TV appearances. Misconduct allegations took place in 2015, 2016, 2017.
Question.
They also, hold on one second. One woman told the investigators that Smiley refused to write a letter of recommendation for her unless she came to his house at 11 p.m. She refused. She also said that when she came by his house one time, he wasn't wearing pants, asked her to have a threesome with him and a female employee. He's denied that. He also said that he hates women. Quote, these women owe me because no one else will hire them. Another woman told investigators she had a sexual relationship with Tavis Smiley, despite her concern that it would hurt her career. And then also, the investigator also interviewed Tavis Smiley, who, according to their report, admitted to having relationships with some employees, said it wasn't misconduct. The investigator concluded that Tavis was not truthful, and his denials conflicted with numerous other witness accounts. And so, again, when you look at this, also this variety story says Smiley's own attorneys filed the documents, including the PBS. So Tavis's own attorneys, they're the ones who filed the PBS investigative report. And apparently they were removed from the court docket on Friday morning. And so that's interesting that his own attorneys would put that report into the record, which actually makes him look really bad. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say this. I mean, some of these relationships can be characterized as dating. These other things are just harassment, right? This is not dating.
So it's a combination.
Yeah. It's two separate.
Some said it was consensual. Some who said it was consensual said, yeah, but I felt like my job was on the line.
They were
Other
coerced.
complaints said, well, the other women felt
other
women said, look, they felt it was wrong because, okay, is so-and-so getting a promotion because they're sleeping with him and then I'm not? So all of those things were part of this, but it goes to trial next month.
Yeah.
You said Tavis Smiley owned his own company, so he utilized PBS as platform, correct?
Yeah, so what happens is
there a contract?
Well, yeah.
Yes.
What happens is when you do a show with PBS, you actually do a show, your production company does it in partnership with a local PBS affiliate.
Right.
Okay, so that was the PBS affiliate in Los Angeles. And then you're able to do a national distribution deal with PBS and their stations across the country. But yeah, there is a contract. There's a contract
that states what he allegedly done.
They said that there's a morals clause in their contract and he was in violation.
That's what PBS says.
That's what they're alleging.
That's what I'm getting at. If that is the case, then I don't see how he has a legitimate case for the simple fact, if you sign something knowingly and willingly and say, hey, I didn't agree to that, well, your signature's right here, so you signed it.
Look, bottom line is going to trial next month.
Yes.
Unless there's some sort of settlement. I don't think there's going to be one. There's been lots of bad blood between PBS and Tavis for quite some time. And remember, after he lost his gig, he announced that he was supposed to be doing these shows with the Word Network and was launching a digital show. None of that ever came to pass as well. And so we'll see what happens. So pretty much, I mean, since this went off the air, you really haven't seen much of Tavis Smiley anywhere. The book imprint, he was supposed to do a stage play tied around his book on the final year of King's life that was launching, I think it was like around November 2018, leading up to MLK 50, actually 2017, leading up to MLK 50. That never happened as well. And so we certainly shall see. All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, folks, as the marijuana momentum continues, the folks at marijuanastock.org have already reached more than half of their funding goal for the hemp CBD investment. That's right. If you want to take advantage of this great opportunity, you need to do it now because it won't last much longer. Now, if you don't know, I'm talking about the hemp plant, the good cousin of marijuana with a much higher concentration of CBD. That means hemp gives you all the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Also, if you don't know, hemp farming is now legal in the U.S., creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. Now, it's an opportunity for you to invest, and that's where 420 Real Estate comes in. Their business model is very simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. They're hemp CBD landlords. You can get in on the action. Now, of course, what they're doing is allowing you to invest a minimum of $200 up to $10,000 in their crowdfunding campaign. That's right, $200 up to $10,000. Now, to invest, all you got to do is go to marijuanastock.org. It's marijuanastock.org, and then you'll see all the details. So you want to get in the game, and get in the game now. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.